Okay, so you're ready to dive into this deep dive on solitude.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
You sent us the Solitude Edge, so clearly we're going beyond just like tolerating alone time.
Right.
We're maybe even looking to turn it into a superpower, right?
Absolutely. And what I think is so fascinating about this is that, our modern world seems to be pushing against the very thing that can help us thrive.
Yeah.
Like we are overloaded with connection and information, but this book makes such a compelling case for solitude as this key to unlocking deeper creativity, focus, self-awareness.
Yeah, I was hooked right from the dedication to rebels, dreamers, and quiet explorers.
Right.
Not exactly who you picture when you picture like a solitude, a book about solitude.
That's a great point, and it highlights, that solitude isn't about rejecting the world,
Right.
but it's about intentionally creating the space to connect with yourself, away from all the noise and demands, right? It's about finding that inner sanctuary.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, and you'll find right away the book is very careful to separate just being alone from feeling lonely.
Right.
And so, it's not just the absence of people, it's this chosen solitude
Right.
that unlocks these benefits.
Right.
So that's a distinction that I think is important to make right from the start.
Yeah, exactly. It's really about mastering the art of enjoying your own company.
Yes.
And that's where the true power comes from.
Yes.
And the book makes that argument.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Sometimes a quiet evening with a good book is exactly what I need to recharge.
Absolutely.
But this book goes beyond just, that sort of feel good. It really dives into the neuroscience of how solitude affects our brain.
Absolutely. And it goes into the default mode network, or what they call the DMN.
Okay.
And it's the part of your brain that actually gets busy when you're not focused on a task.
Okay.
So think daydreaming, showering, taking a walk.
So there's times when our mind can kind of like wander freely.
Exactly. And so the book argues that solitude gives the DMN space to work its magic.
Okay.
So it's like cleaning out all the clutter to make space for new ideas. It's not just this feel-good thing. You're actually giving your brain the space to make those connections that elude you when it's overloaded.
Makes total sense. It's like when you're wrestling with a problem and then the solution hits you when you're doing something totally unrelated.
Absolutely.
It's almost like your brain needed that downtime.
Right.
To connect the dots.
That downtime is so important.
Yeah.
That's often where those aha moments come from, the ones we're all craving.
Yes.
But the book doesn't just explain the benefits.
Right.
It lays out this practical 12-step roadmap for actually harnessing solitude in our lives.
Yeah, and it starts small. It challenges you to start with just 5 minutes of intentional solitude.
Right.
Which you might be surprised how hard that is in today's world.
That first step, the 5-minute solitude habit, is surprisingly challenging.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, because we're so used to filling every moment.
Right.
With noise and distractions that even 5 minutes can feel uncomfortable at first.
I gotta be honest, 5 minutes, I don't know, I'm a little skeptical. Is that really enough to make a difference?
It might seem simple, but the book really argues that even 5 minutes of this intentional quiet can have a significant impact. And if you can stick with it, you might find yourself craving those moments of silence.
Okay, so let's say I give it a try. What comes after those initial 5 minutes?
So from there, the book encourages you to carve out what it calls no input time.
Okay.
And that is a full hour each day.
Oh, wow.
With zero external input.
Okay.
No social media, no screens, no talking, no music, no podcasts, just a full detox.
A whole hour. I don't know if I'm ready for that level of disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, is that necessary in today's world?
The key is replacing the mindless input
Right.
with intentional thinking. So instead of reaching for your phone or turning on the TV, the book suggests things like journaling, taking a silent walk, or meditating.
Okay.
It's about actively engaging your mind instead of letting it be passively entertained.
Okay, I see the value in that. I mean, it's about being more intentional with our time and attention.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, that sounds like it takes a lot of self-discipline.
Self-discipline is key, and it's the focus of the entire second phase of the roadmap, which is rewiring your mindset.
Okay, so it's not just about finding the time, it's about shifting our attitude towards it.
Exactly. The book challenges you to reframe solitude as a source of power, not loneliness.
Okay.
Instead of, I'm alone.
Right.
It's about shifting to, I'm giving myself space to grow.
Right. Like choosing to invest in yourself instead of constantly seeking validation from the outside world.
Absolutely. And The book also emphasizes the importance of using solitude to train your intuition,
Okay.
which I think is fascinating.
Do you think that's like, do you think everyone has that strong inner voice, or is that something that we develop through solitude?
That's a great question. And the book actually argues that everyone has this inner voice,
Okay.
but it's often drowned out
Yeah.
by the constant noise and distractions of modern life.
Right.
So solitude creates the space for that intuition to emerge.
Okay.
It's like tuning into a radio station.
Okay.
If there's too much static, you can't hear the signal clearly.
It makes sense. When you're bombarded with opinions and information, it's hard to hear your own inner wisdom.
Exactly.
Solitude creates that space for clarity.
Exactly. And it's not just about making better decisions. It's also about building emotional resilience, which I think is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting. How does solitude help with emotional resilience?
Well, so many people avoid being alone because they fear their own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
But the book argues that if you can't sit with your own emotions, they control you. It's like ignoring a leaky faucet. Eventually, it's going to overflow. Solitude provides a safe space to process those emotions, to understand them, to develop healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I mean, it's about facing those uncomfortable feelings head on rather than trying to avoid them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what does the book suggest we do when those difficult emotions arise in solitude?
So it encourages a practice called the sit with it exercise.
Okay.
And when a strong emotion arises, instead of resisting it, you sit in silence, name the emotion, find where it lives in your body, and you just breathe into it. You allow yourself to fully feel it.
That sounds intense, but I get it. I mean, I can see how it would be empowering to learn to sit with those uncomfortable feelings rather than just letting them control us.
Absolutely.
Does the book offer any other tools for this kind of like inner work?
Absolutely. And it encourages you to shift from consuming to creating. So spend more time creating than you do consuming.
Okay.
So think journaling instead of scrolling.
Yeah.
Writing instead of watching.
Yeah.
Thinking instead of reacting.
I love that idea. It's like becoming an active participant in our lives.
Right.
Rather than just passively consuming
Absolutely.
whatever the world throws at us. That sounds challenging to put into practice. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's where the third and final phase of this roadmap comes in.
Okay.
And it's turning solitude into power.
Okay.
The first step is designing your ideal solitude ritual.
So like finding what works for you and making it a regular part of your routine.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to solitude.
Right.
The book encourages you to experiment and discover what resonates with you personally, whether that's journaling, meditation, silent walks, anything that helps you connect with yourself.
That's reassuring. So there's no like right or wrong way to do solitude?
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you.
Okay.
And making it a consistent part of your life.
Right.
And along those same lines, the book also suggests creating a think space.
A think space? Tell me more.
It's a designated spot you go to for thinking, reflection, and working on your most important tasks.
Okay.
It could be a specific chair, a quiet corner in your home, even a park bench. Over time, your brain will associate that space with focus and clarity.
So like creating a mental sanctuary free from distractions.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Does the book suggest anything else to help us cultivate that focus and clarity?
The book also suggests building an unshakable mindset.
An unshakable mindset. What exactly does that mean?
It's described as a mindset that thrives under pressure, turns stress into strength, and it makes you unstoppable. It's about developing the mental and emotional resilience to handle whatever life throws at you.
That sounds amazing, but also a little intimidating. I mean, is it really possible to become that unshakable?
Well, the book offers a 3-step framework, and the first step is rewiring your thinking patterns.
So it starts with becoming aware of our negative thoughts and challenging them.
Exactly. Instead of letting those negative thoughts control you, you start questioning their validity.
So it's about being more mindful of our self-talk.
Right.
Recognizing that our thoughts aren't always an accurate reflection of reality.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've identified those negative thoughts. What's the next step?
The next step is to reframe those negative thoughts into something more empowering.
Okay.
For example, instead of thinking, I'm not good enough,
Right.
you might reframe it as, I'm learning and growing every day.
Okay.
It's about shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion.
That's such a powerful shift.
Absolutely.
Instead of beating ourselves up for mistakes, we can choose to see them as opportunities
Right.
for learning and growth.
Right.
What's the final step in this building an unshakable mindset?
The final step is to focus on what you can control,
Okay.
which is your actions and your attitude.
Right.
And the book highlights a concept called the control circle.
Okay.
And you draw a circle and write down all the things that are within your control.
Okay.
Your effort, your attitude, and your choices.
So focusing our energy on what we can influence rather than wasting it on things that are outside our control.
Exactly.
Okay.
By consistently focusing on what we can control, we build a sense of agency and empowerment. And that strengthens our resilience.
That's such a powerful idea, taking ownership of our lives
Right.
and our responses rather than feeling like we're just at the mercy of external circumstances.
Absolutely. And speaking of taking ownership, the book also dives into the topic of deep work and peak productivity.
Okay, let's talk about getting things done.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking for ways to be more productive.
Right.
Especially, with so many distractions.
Absolutely.
So, what's the book's take on achieving, peak productivity?
The book argues that mastering deep work is key.
Okay.
And that is focusing intensely on a single task.
Okay.
For an extended period of time without distractions, creating this state of deep concentration where you can actually produce your best work.
That sounds like the opposite of how most of us work today. We're
Right.
constantly bombarded with notifications and emails and messages.
Absolutely.
It makes it almost impossible to focus.
Right. And the book acknowledges that eliminating distractions is that first step
Okay.
in creating the space for deep work.
So put away the phone, close the email tab, find a quiet space where you can truly focus.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then to further enhance that focus, it suggests a technique called the focus sprint method.
Focus sprint. What's that?
It's this simple but effective strategy where you set a timer for 50 minutes.
Okay.
And you work on one task without switching or getting distracted.
Okay.
After those 50 minutes, you take a 10-minute break to reset and then repeat the process.
Like interval training for your brain.
Exactly.
You're pushing yourself to focus intensely
Right.
for a set period, then giving yourself a short break to recover before diving back in.
Precisely. And so the book argues that by repeatedly engaging in these focus sprints,
Yeah.
you're training your brain to concentrate more effectively, leading to increased productivity
Right.
and better quality work.
Yeah, building that mental muscle
Right?
for sustained focus rather
Yeah.
than trying to force yourself to concentrate
Yeah.
for hours and hours. I like that there are breaks.
Yeah.
It makes it feel more manageable.
Absolutely.
So to support this deep work practice, the book suggests designing a deep work ritual.
Yes, I love this.
A ritual? Tell me more.
So it's about creating consistent actions that signal to your brain, okay, it's time
Right.
to enter deep work mode.
Okay.
And this could include things like picking the same workspace, using a specific trigger,
Okay.
like maybe a deep breath, maybe a cup of coffee,
Right.
clearing all distractions,
Okay.
and defining a clear goal for the section.
So it's about establishing a routine that helps your mind transition into that state
Absolutely.
of deep focus.
That's exactly. By consistently following the same ritual, you train your brain to associate those actions with intense concentration, making it easier to enter that flow state
Right.
where you can produce your best work.
It's like creating a mental shortcut to productivity.
Right.
And speaking of shortcuts, the book also delves into the idea of visualization as a tool for success.
Absolutely. And the book argues that visualization isn't just wishful thinking.
Okay.
It's a powerful technique for programming your mind for success.
So we're not just talking about daydreaming here.
Right.
What exactly does visualization entail?
Okay,
And how does it work?
so visualization involves creating this really vivid, detailed mental image of your goal as if it's already happening.
Okay.
You engage all your senses, your emotions, you make it feel as real as possible.
So it's about more than just picturing the outcome. It's about truly immersing yourself in the experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the book explains that when you do this consistently, you're actually training your brain to believe that the goal is achievable.
Okay.
You're creating these neural pathways
Right.
that actually support the actions
All right.
and behaviors necessary to reach your desired outcome.
That's fascinating. So it's like giving your brain a mental blueprint
Precisely.
for success.
Right.
And to enhance the effectiveness of visualization, the book highlights the importance of emotional engagement.
Yes, I love this.
So it's not just about seeing it, it's about feeling it as well.
Exactly. The book explains that emotions are these powerful drivers of action.
Right.
So when you combine a clear vision with strong positive emotions,
Yeah.
you create this potent force that actually propels you towards your goals.
That makes sense. It's like the difference between simply wanting to achieve something and being like completely driven to make it happen. When you feel that emotional connection, you're much more likely to take action.
Right.
And speaking of taking action, the book also emphasizes aligning your daily actions with your vision. Absolutely.
So it's not enough to just visualize our goals.
Right.
We need to take those concrete steps to make them a reality.
Exactly.
So it's about bridging the gap between imagination and action.
Precisely. And the book suggests a very simple but effective question to ask yourself each morning, and that is, what would my future self do today?
I love that question. It's a great way to, keep yourself accountable.
Right.
And ensure that your actions are aligned with your long-term goals.
Absolutely.
It's like bringing that future vision into your present moment and using it as a guide for your daily choices.
And speaking of staying on track, the book also dives into the topic of journaling as a tool for mental clarity and growth.
Journaling. I have to admit, I've always struggled with keeping a journal consistently.
Yeah.
So what's the book's take on journaling, and how can we make it a more manageable and effective practice? So the book positions journaling as this really powerful tool for clearing mental clutter, gaining insights, and turning thoughts into action.
Okay.
It acknowledges that traditional journaling can feel really overwhelming for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it offers a more structured approach.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the secret to making journaling work?
The book recommends this 3-step journaling system, and it starts with something called a brain dump.
A brain dump? Sounds messy.
It might sound chaotic, but that's the point.
Okay.
You set a timer for 5 minutes, and you just write down everything that's swirling in your head.
Okay.
No structure, no editing, just pure, unfiltered thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
It's like cleaning out that junk drawer in your mind.
Right.
So you can create space for clearer thinking.
So get all those thoughts out of your head and onto the page where you can start to make sense of them.
Exactly. And then once you've cleared all that mental clutter, you move on to what the book calls clarity prompts.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What exactly are clarity prompts and how do they work?
So clarity prompts are these specific questions designed to help you gain deeper insights and make meaningful progress. So instead of passively writing down random thoughts, you use these prompts to really guide your reflection and focus on what matters most.
So shifting from aimless journaling to a more intentional and focused practice?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the book provides a handful of really powerful prompts to get you started, such as, what's one thing I could do today that would make the biggest difference?
Okay.
What's holding me back from making progress on X?
So simple, yet so powerful. I mean, they force you to cut through the noise.
Right.
And get to the heart of what really matters.
Absolutely. And then the final step in this journaling system, which I think is crucial, is to turn those insights into action.
Okay.
So journaling shouldn't just be this passive exercise in reflection.
Right.
It should be a catalyst for change.
So it's about bridging the gap between thought and action. How does the book suggest we do that?
So the book recommends ending each journaling session with this question. What's one small action I can take today based on what I wrote?
Brilliant. It's like creating a built-in accountability system.
Exactly.
Within your journaling practice.
By consistently taking action on those insights, you transform journaling from this passive reflection exercise into this powerful tool for personal growth and transformation.
That's such a powerful shift.
Absolutely.
And speaking of transformation, the book also dives into the topic of overcoming fear and self-doubt.
Absolutely. And the book acknowledges that fear and self-doubt are these universal human experiences.
Yeah.
And it provides a framework for dealing with them constructively.
Fear and self-doubt can definitely hold a lot of us back. It's like these invisible barriers that prevent us from pursuing our dreams or taking risks. How does the book suggest we overcome those barriers?
So it provides a 3-step system for mastering fear, and it starts with naming it.
Naming it?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So it means clearly identifying what you're actually afraid of.
Okay.
Instead of letting that fear just kind of swirl around in your head as this vague, undefined anxiety, you bring it into the light. And you give it a name.
So getting specific about our fears rather than just letting them kind of loom over us as these like shadowy, undefined threats?
Exactly.
Okay.
So once you've named your fear, the next step is to flip it.
Flip it?
Yes.
How do we do that?
The book suggests reframing fear as a growth signal. So fear and excitement often feel very similar in our bodies. A racing heart, sweaty palms, heightened awareness.
Yeah.
The difference is the story we tell ourselves about those sensations.
So changing our perspective on fear, seeing it as a sign that, we're on the right track.
Right.
We're pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone.
Precisely. So instead of thinking I'm scared to fail, you might reframe it as I'm excited to grow. It's about shifting your self-talk from fear-based to growth-oriented.
That's such a powerful shift.
It is.
It's about embracing the challenge instead of shrinking back from it. So the final step in this fear mastery system.
Facing it.
Okay.
The book argues that the most effective way to overcome fear is to take action.
Okay.
Despite it. Prove to yourself that you're stronger than your fear and that the consequences of taking action are rarely as dire as your mind imagines.
Like that old saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the face of fear.
Precisely.
Okay.
By consistently facing our fears, we build confidence, resilience, and we prove to ourselves that we can handle whatever challenges life throws our way.
That's so inspiring. It's about empowering ourselves to move forward, even when it feels scary.
Absolutely.
Now, the book also dives into the important topic of decision-making and intuition.
Yes, and the book argues that solitude actually sharpens our intuition.
Okay.
And makes it easier to make confident decisions.
I can see that. When we're constantly surrounded by noise and opinions, it can be really hard to hear our own inner voice. Yep. So how does the book suggest we tap into that intuition?
It provides a 3-step framework, and it starts with silencing the noise.
So putting away the phone, stepping away from the computer, finding a quiet space where we can think clearly.
Exactly. And it actually suggests having what they call a solo clarity session. So you go find a quiet spot, take a few deep breaths to clear your head.
Okay.
And you ask yourself, if I already knew the answer, what would it be?
That's such a great question.
Isn't it?
It forces you to bypass all the overthinking and just get straight to the heart of what you truly feel.
Right. And the book emphasizes that your first instinct is often the right one.
Okay.
It's our overthinking minds.
Right.
That tend to muddy the waters and create doubt.
So it's about learning to trust our gut, that initial feeling or impulse that arises before our minds start second-guessing everything.
Precisely. And once you've identified that gut feeling, the next step is to make a fast, confident choice.
I love that. No more agonizing over every little decision. But how do we know when we've gathered enough information to make a decision? It's so easy to fall into the trap of overthinking and endlessly researching every possible option.
Right. And that's where the book introduces the 80% rule.
Yeah.
If you're at least 80% sure about a decision, go for it. Don't wait for 100% certainty because it rarely comes.
So embracing a bit of risk and trusting that, even if we don't have all the answers, we can course correct along the way.
Right.
Okay.
That's the whole idea.
And the final step in this framework.
Commit and adjust.
So no more second guessing once you've made a decision.
Precisely. The book emphasizes moving forward with confidence, making adjustments as needed, rather than getting stuck in a cycle of doubt and indecision.
That's a powerful concept. It's about trusting ourselves.
Right.
And our ability to navigate the challenges. Rather than letting fear just paralyze us.
Absolutely. And speaking of trusting ourselves, the book also dives into the connection between solitude and creativity.
Okay, let's talk creativity, because I think I'm always looking for ways to tap into my creative flow, especially when I'm feeling stuck or uninspired, So how does the book suggest we use solitude to boost our creative potential?
Well, the book argues that solitude is essential for unlocking creativity.
Okay.
And it actually cites examples of great thinkers and artists throughout history. Who intentionally sought out solitude to fuel their creative process. Thinkers like Steve Jobs taking those long walks. Nikola Tesla locking himself away in his lab.
It makes sense. When we're constantly bombarded with input and distractions, it's hard for our own creative sparks to ignite.
Exactly.
Solitude creates that space for our minds to wander and make those new connections.
Exactly. And so the book provides a 3-step creative solitude framework. And it starts with emptying our mental clutter.
That detoxing idea we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Putting away the phone, turning off the TV, giving our minds a break from all that constant input.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it actually suggests taking it a step further with a 24-hour creative fast.
A full 24 hours?
Yes.
Okay.
Eliminating all non-essential input for an entire day.
Wow.
No social media.
Okay.
No news.
Okay.
No passive entertainment.
Okay, that's a serious commitment, but I can see how it would be so freeing to just like unplug that completely and give your mind a chance to reset.
Right. And the goal is to create space for true clarity and inspiration to emerge.
Okay.
Give your mind a chance to breathe and make connections that wouldn't be possible in a state of constant stimulation.
I love that. It's like hitting the reset button on your creativity.
Exactly. And so once you've cleared that mental space, the next step is to absorb.
Absorb what?
The book talks about entering what it calls the creative field, and it draws on concepts like the Hindu idea of Brahman, this universal consciousness as the source of creativity.
Okay.
And the Zen Buddhist emphasis on finding these insights through stillness and presence.
So tapping into a source of creativity that exists beyond our individual minds.
Exactly. And it provides a technique called the deep listening method to help us connect with that source.
Okay.
And you find a quiet, distraction-free place, sit in silence for 20 minutes, and just pay attention to whatever thoughts, images, or feelings arise.
So quieting the mind and allowing inspiration to kind of flow through us?
Precisely. It's about shifting from a state of forcing to a state of allowing.
Right.
And then the final step in this framework is to manifest, to actually turn those ideas into reality.
Okay, so we've decluttered our minds, tapped into the creative field, and now it's time to bring those ideas to life. How do we make that leap from inspiration to action?
So the book suggests a technique called the visualization to action technique.
The visualization again. I'm sensing a theme here.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool.
Okay.
In this case, it's about closing your eyes and vividly imagining your idea as if it's already real.
Okay.
You write down the idea in detail, making it tangible, and then you take one immediate action towards making it happen.
Combining the power of visualization with those concrete action steps.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that taking that first step, no matter how small, is crucial for setting the creative process in motion.
It's like breaking down that initial barrier of inertia and creating momentum.
Right.
Once you've taken that first step, it's so much easier to keep moving forward.
Right. Now, the book also suggests that solitude is not only beneficial for personal growth, but it's also essential for our relationships.
That's interesting. I usually think of relationships as being about connection and togetherness, not solitude. How does the book connect the two?
So it explores what it calls the partner paradox.
Okay.
Which is that the best relationships are built by people who are comfortable being alone.
So being a whole person.
Exactly.
Both within and outside of the relationship.
Exactly. The book argues that if you don't know who you are without someone else, you become dependent on your partner to complete you. And that can put a strain on the relationship.
Makes sense. When you're secure in yourself, you're not looking to your partner to fill a void or to give you like constant validation. You're coming to the relationship as a whole person, not someone seeking to be, completed by the other person.
Precisely. And the book dives into the psychology of attachment styles.
Oh, attachment styles. I've heard about those.
Yes.
Can you give us a quick overview?
Absolutely. So there are 4 main attachment styles, right? Secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant.
Okay.
So secure attachment is characterized by this healthy balance of independence and intimacy.
Okay.
Anxious attachment involves this fear of abandonment, a constant need for reassurance. Avoidant attachment is characterized by a fear of intimacy and a preference for independence.
Okay.
And then fearful avoidant attachment is kind of a mix of both.
Okay.
Leading to this push-pull dynamic in relationships.
Wow, that's fascinating. So our early childhood experiences can have a huge impact on how we relate to others in our adult relationships.
Absolutely. And the thing is, attachment styles aren't set in stone.
Okay, good.
With awareness and effort.
Right.
We can actually shift from insecure to more secure patterns of relating.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
So even if we didn't have the most, secure upbringing, we can still learn to build those healthy and fulfilling relationships.
Absolutely. And the book provides specific strategies for rewiring our attachment styles.
Okay.
Things like practicing self-soothing techniques for anxious attachment, working on vulnerability and emotional openness for avoidant attachment.
Okay.
And focusing on building emotional stability for fearful avoidant attachment.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
It's empowering to know that we have the ability to change these patterns and create the kind of relationships that we truly desire.
Right.
And speaking of creating, the book also talks about the importance of letting go of the past.
Yes, and the book argues that solitude can be a powerful tool for releasing the past and creating space for new beginnings.
Letting go is so hard, though.
It is.
It's like our minds have a way of clinging to old hurts and regrets, even when we know they're no longer serving us.
Absolutely.
How does the book suggest we approach letting go?
It provides a 3-step framework, and it starts with acceptance.
So acknowledging what happened, even if it was painful or unfair.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that acceptance doesn't mean condoning or approving of what happened.
Right.
It simply means acknowledging reality and stopping the cycle of resistance.
Like surrendering to what is rather than fighting against it.
Precisely. So once you've accepted what happened, the next step is to detach. To break that emotional loop that keeps you stuck.
Right. In the past. Stopping those like repetitive negative thoughts that keep replaying in our minds.
Exactly. And the book suggests a technique called the thought disruptor technique. And so when a painful memory surfaces, you label it as not useful, and you redirect your focus to something neutral or positive.
So interrupting that negative thought pattern and consciously choosing to focus on something more empowering.
Precisely. And then the final step in this letting go framework is to redirect your focus to the future.
So instead of dwelling on the past, we shift our attention to what we want to create in our lives moving forward.
Exactly. The book highlights the importance of setting new goals, surrounding ourselves with positive influences, and creating a vision for the future that's bigger and brighter than our past.
It's like creating a compelling future.
Right.
That pulls us forward rather than letting the past hold us back.
Right. And speaking of moving forward, the book also addresses the challenge of silencing our inner critic.
Oh, the inner critic.
Right.
That can be so loud and persistent. It's like it's always there, ready to point out our flaws and undermine our confidence.
Absolutely. And the book provides this 3-step framework for mastering our inner critic. And it starts with identifying it.
So becoming aware of those negative thoughts, recognizing them for what they are, just thoughts, not facts.
Exactly. And it suggests this really simple but effective exercise.
Okay.
For one day, write down every self-doubting thought that crosses your mind.
So bringing those thoughts into the light of our awareness, rather than letting them just kind of run rampant in the background.
Precisely. And once you've identified those negative thoughts, the next step is to reframe them.
Challenging those thoughts and choosing to see things from a more empowering perspective.
Exactly. And it provides a series of questions to help you challenge your negative self-talk.
Okay.
Things like, is this 100% true?
Okay.
Would I say this to a friend?
Right.
What's a more empowering way to see this?
Those are great questions, aren't they? They force you to pause and examine the validity of your thoughts.
Right.
Rather than just accepting them as truth.
Right.
Okay. And then the final step in this framework.
Replace.
Okay.
Replace those negative thoughts with a more confident inner voice.
So it's about actively cultivating self-compassion.
Absolutely.
And building a more positive and supportive internal dialogue.
Exactly. And the book suggests pairing positive affirmations with actions.
Okay.
So, for example, you might write down one small win from your day each night.
Okay.
And then say out loud, I am someone who takes action.
Yeah.
Or, I am capable and improving every day.
I love that idea. It's about backing up those positive affirmations with concrete evidence, which makes them feel more authentic and believable. It's like building a case for your own awesomeness.
Exactly. And speaking of awesomeness, the book also explores the concept of identity shifting.
Identity shifting.
Yes.
That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
So the book argues that our identity isn't fixed. It's actually a story we tell ourselves.
Okay.
And we have the power to rewrite that story.
So we're not limited by, the labels we've been given or the roles we've played in the past. We can choose to define ourselves differently.
Exactly. And it provides a 3-step framework for identity shifting. And it starts with defining the blueprint for the identity you want to create.
So instead of just saying, I want to be more confident, we get specific about what that looks like.
Precisely. And the book suggests creating this detailed description of your desired identity.
Right.
So, for example, you might say, I am someone who speaks up in meetings, asks for what I want, and carries myself with ease.
I love that. It's like creating a mental picture of our future self.
Right.
And using it as a guide for our actions.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the next step is aligning your actions with that blueprint.
So that's where the rubber meets the road. It's like, okay, I've got this picture. of who I want to be, but now how do I make that real in my day-to-day life?
Right. And the book emphasizes the importance of acting as if you're already that person.
Okay.
Even if it feels a bit uncomfortable at first.
Right.
Those small actions actually start to reinforce the new identity.
So it's like that idea of fake it till you make it.
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more about actively embodying the qualities and behaviors of your desired identity.
Okay.
And over time, those actions start to feel more natural and your self-perception actually begins to shift.
Okay, so it's not just about putting on a mask, it's about actually changing
Right.
the way we see ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, and the final step in this framework.
Reinforce.
Okay.
Reinforce the new identity.
So celebrating those small wins, acknowledging, oh, hey, I did that thing that my future self would be proud of.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The book suggests celebrating even the smallest wins and consistently acting in alignment with your new identity. Over time, your brain catches on, and the new identity becomes your reality.
That's so powerful. It's like taking control of the narrative of our lives, choosing to become the authors of our own stories.
Right.
And speaking of narratives, this book also dives into the topic of breaking free from what they call the approval trap.
Yes, it addresses that common human tendency to seek validation from others and how that can really hold us back from living authentically and pursuing our true passions.
Yeah, that approval trap can be so sneaky. It shows up in, so many areas of our lives, from the jobs we choose to the relationships we form. How does the book suggest we break free from that need for constant external validation?
So it offers several strategies. It starts with becoming aware of when we're seeking that validation.
Okay, so noticing those moments when we're doing something primarily to impress others or to get their approval rather than because it truly aligns with our values or our desires.
Exactly. And once you become aware of those patterns, the next step is to shift your focus from reaction to contribution.
So instead of worrying about how others will perceive us, we focus on the value we're bringing to the table.
Exactly. It's about shifting from will they like me to how can I make a difference?
Oh, I love that shift. It's about empowering ourselves to focus on what truly matters to us rather than letting the opinions of others dictate our choices. And, that kind of ties into another idea from the book, embracing rejection as a sign of growth.
Absolutely. And rejection is an inevitable part of life, especially when you're putting yourself out there and pursuing your dreams.
Yeah.
The book actually reframes rejection as a filter, not a failure.
So instead of seeing rejection as a personal attack, we can choose to see it as a sign that we're on the right track, that we're not trying to please everyone, that we're standing firmly in our own truth.
Exactly. And by embracing rejection as a natural part of the process, we free ourselves from that fear of not being liked by everyone.
Right.
And that opens up so much more space for authenticity and growth. And speaking of breaking free, the book also encourages us to embrace being disliked.
Wait, what? Embrace being disliked? That sounds a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, isn't the goal to be liked and accepted?
Well, the book actually makes this bold argument. That being disliked can actually be a superpower.
Okay, now I'm really curious. How can being disliked possibly be a good thing?
So the book explains that when we stop trying to please everyone, we free ourselves to be more authentic, to express our true opinions, and to make choices that align with our values, even if those choices aren't popular.
Right.
It's about owning our individuality and letting go of that need to fit in.
That's a powerful message. It's about recognizing that not everyone is going to like us, and that's okay. In fact, it might even be a sign that we're doing something right, that we're not compromising our values, we're not trying to be someone we're not.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that by embracing our authentic selves, even the parts that might not be universally loved, we attract the right people into our lives.
Yes. It's about finding our tribe, those people who resonate with our values, who support us on our journey, rather than trying to win over everyone we meet.
That makes me think about another point the book makes, which is the art of saying no.
Yes. A crucial skill for anyone who wants to protect their time, energy, and sanity.
Saying no is so hard, though.
Yeah.
Especially when, we want to be helpful or we're afraid of disappointing others. How does the book suggest we overcome that hesitation and say no with confidence?
The book provides several practical strategies, and it starts with recognizing that no is a complete sentence.
Okay, so we don't need to over-explain or justify our decisions.
Exactly. You don't owe anyone an elaborate explanation for why you're declining a request.
Right.
Simply saying no thank you or I'm not able to do that right now is enough.
Oh, that's so liberating. It takes the pressure off having to come up with like the perfect excuse or explanation.
Right.
And speaking of simplifying things, the book also emphasizes setting boundaries early on.
Right. The longer you wait to say no, the harder it becomes.
Yeah. It's much easier to decline a request up front than to try and back out later when you're already feeling overwhelmed or resentful.
Makes total sense. It's about being proactive and protecting our time and energy from the start. What about, when people try to pressure us or guilt trip us into saying yes? The book has some advice for that too, right?
Absolutely. It suggests using what it calls the broken record technique.
Okay.
You simply repeat your no without giving into the pressure or providing further explanations.
So, standing firm in our decision, even when others try to sway us.
Exactly. And the book assures us that people will eventually back off when they see that we're serious about our boundaries.
That's empowering. It's about reclaiming our right to choose how we spend our time and energy. This conversation reminds me of a time when, actually, never mind, it's not that important.
No worries. Sometimes those stories are best kept to ourselves.
That's probably wise. Okay, back to the book. So we talked about embracing rejection, setting boundaries, but it also tackles this bigger topic of handling failure and rejection, just in general.
Absolutely. It acknowledges that failure and rejection are inevitable parts of life, especially when you're stepping outside of your comfort zone and pursuing your dreams.
Failure can be so discouraging, though. It's easy to let those setbacks make us doubt our abilities and question our path. How does the book suggest we navigate those difficult moments and bounce back from failures?
So the book provides this 3-step resilience formula, and it starts with reframing how we see failure.
Okay. So instead of seeing failure as a sign of weakness or inadequacy, we choose to view it as a learning opportunity.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process.
It makes me think about all those famous inventors and entrepreneurs who failed countless times before achieving their breakthroughs. If they had given up after the first few setbacks, we wouldn't have light bulbs or airplanes.
Exactly. And the book actually suggests asking ourselves, what did this teach me?
Okay.
Instead of, why did I fail?
Oh, that's good. It's about shifting our focus from self-blame to curiosity and learning.
Exactly. And then the next step in this resilience formula is rebuild.
Okay.
Extract the lessons from the failure and adjust your approach accordingly.
So it's not just about picking ourselves up and trying again. It's about analyzing what went wrong, identifying areas for improvement, and making adjustments to our strategy.
Precisely. The book highlights that successful people fail faster and better.
Okay.
Because they use failure as data.
So it's about seeing failure as feedback, not a final verdict.
Exactly. And it suggests conducting what it calls a failure debrief after each setback. Ask yourself questions like, what worked? What didn't work? What will I do differently next time?
That's such a valuable practice. It turns failure into a springboard for growth rather than a dead end. What's the last step in this formula?
Reignite. Use failure as fuel for your next move.
So instead of letting failure crush our motivation, we use it to fire us up and push us forward with even more determination.
Exactly. The book suggests turning our biggest failures into challenges. Use them as motivation to prove ourselves right.
Ooh. It's like saying to the universe, oh, you think I can't do this? Watch me.
Precisely. And the book argues that the best revenge against failure is massive success.
Love that. It's about turning those setbacks into stepping stones and using our experiences, both positive and negative, to propel us forward on our path. And speaking of staying on track, the book also delves into the importance of building an unshakable mindset.
Yes. It emphasizes that mental toughness is essential for navigating the inevitable challenges and setbacks that life throws our way.
It's like building that inner resilience that allows us to, weather the storms and come out stronger on the other side. But how do we go about building that kind of unshakable mindset? That sounds like a tall order.
Well, the book breaks it down into a 3-step framework, and it starts with rewiring our thinking patterns.
Okay, so it's about becoming aware of those negative thought patterns that tend to sabotage our efforts and consciously choosing to think differently.
Exactly. The book encourages us to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with more empowering beliefs.
It's like upgrading the software of our minds.
Right.
Installing a more positive and resilient operating system.
Precisely. The book emphasizes that our thoughts create our reality. If we believe we can achieve something, we're much more likely to take the actions necessary to make it happen. But if we're constantly bombarded by self-doubt and negativity, we're much more likely to give up before we even start.
Makes sense. It's about creating a mental environment that supports our growth rather than one that undermines our efforts. Okay, what's the next step in this framework?
Rebuild.
Yeah.
Strengthen your emotional control.
So it's not about suppressing our feelings or pretending that we don't experience stress, anxiety, or disappointment. It's about learning to manage those emotions more effectively.
Exactly. The book encourages us to develop strategies for regulating our emotions. Things like mindfulness, deep breathing exercises, reframing negative thoughts.
It's like building that internal muscle that allows us to stay calm and focused,
Right.
even when things get tough.
Yes. And then the final step in building this unshakable mindset is reinforce. Train your brain for long-term resilience.
So making mental toughness a habit, a way of life.
Precisely. The book suggests incorporating small, consistent challenges into your daily routines to build that resilience.
It's like those athletes who train in extreme conditions to prepare themselves for competition. By pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones in a controlled environment, we build that mental and emotional strength to handle whatever unexpected challenges life throws our way.
Exactly. And the book highlights that strength is a choice.
Okay.
We can choose to stay stuck in our comfort zones and let challenges defeat us, or we can choose to embrace discomfort as an opportunity for growth.
It's about stepping into our power and recognizing that we're capable of so much more than we often believe.
Right. And speaking of believing in ourselves, the book also explores the science of happiness and fulfillment.
Okay, let's talk happiness. I think, we all want to feel happy and fulfilled in our lives, but it can be elusive sometimes. What's the book's take on achieving lasting happiness?
It challenges the common misconception that happiness is something we achieve or acquire.
Okay.
It argues that happiness is a state of being that we cultivate through our actions, our thoughts, and our choices.
So it's not about waiting for something outside of ourselves to make us happy. It's about creating happiness from within.
Exactly. And the book actually highlights 3 common mistakes that actually prevent us from experiencing true happiness.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are those happiness-blocking mistakes, and how can we avoid them?
The first mistake is what it calls destination addiction.
Okay.
Believing that once we achieve a certain goal or acquire a certain possession, then we'll finally be happy.
So that if-only mentality. If only I had more money, then I'd be happy, or if only I found the perfect partner, then my life would be complete.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that this kind of thinking keeps us stuck on what they call the hedonic treadmill, always chasing the next thing, never truly satisfied with what we have.
It's like that saying, happiness is a journey, not a destination.
Precisely. Yeah. And so the book encourages us to shift our focus from chasing external achievements to cultivating internal contentment.
So finding joy in the present moment rather than constantly striving for something more.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the second mistake that blocks happiness is what it calls the external validation trap.
Okay.
Letting our happiness depend on the approval or opinions of others.
The approval trap again. It seems like that's a recurring theme in this book.
It's a pervasive challenge in our culture, especially with the rise of social media. We're constantly bombarded with these images of perfection and messages that tell us we need to be more, do more, have more to be happy.
It's so easy to get caught up in that comparison game and start feeling inadequate.
Exactly. And so the book encourages us to detach our happiness from those external sources and really focus on what brings us intrinsic joy.
So identifying those activities, those pursuits, those relationships that light us up from the inside out.
Precisely. And then the final mistake that blocks happiness is what it calls the one-time event illusion.
Okay.
Believing that happiness is a one-time event, like winning the lottery or achieving some major life goal.
Right. So that idea that once we reach a certain milestone, we'll be happy forever after.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that happiness is not a static destination. It's a dynamic process that requires ongoing cultivation.
So making happiness a daily practice, a conscious choice we make every day.
Precisely. The book suggests incorporating small, consistent habits into our routines that bring us joy, whether it's spending time in nature, listening to music, connecting with loved ones.
It's about creating a life that's filled with those little moments of joy rather than waiting for some grand event to make us happy. It makes me think about another key idea from the book, the power of what they call the 1% rule.
Absolutely. It's about the idea that tiny incremental improvements, when applied consistently over time, can lead to massive results.
Right.
The book emphasizes that we often overestimate the importance of those big changes and underestimate the power of small, consistent actions.
It's like that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
Right.
And the book argues that when we focus on making those small, sustainable changes to our habits, our routines, our mindsets, we create this ripple effect.
Right.
That transforms our lives over time.
So even if we don't see dramatic results right away, we can trust that those small, consistent efforts are creating a foundation for future success.
Exactly. And the book highlights that the real power of small habits lies in the identity shift they create.
So it's not just about the actions themselves, it's about how those actions change the way we see ourselves.
Precisely. When we consistently engage in behaviors that align with our desired identity, our brains start to believe it. If we write one sentence every day, we start to see ourselves as writers. If we do one push-up every morning, we start to identify as athletes.
Right. It's like we're proving to ourselves one small action at a time that we're capable of change and growth.
Exactly. And the book encourages us to embrace this identity shift as a powerful tool for personal transformation.
It's about becoming the person we want to be, one small step at a time. Okay, all this talk about small steps and consistent action makes me think about flow state. You know, it's like when you're completely absorbed in an activity, time seems to disappear. What's the book's take on flow state? And are there ways we can make it a more consistent part of our lives?
So the book describes flow state as a state of complete immersion in an activity.
Okay.
Where you lose track of time and you feel fully engaged and energized.
Right.
And it provides this 3-step formula for intentionally entering that state.
Okay, tell me everything. How do we make flow state happen on demand?
The first step is to eliminate what the book calls flow blockers.
Okay.
And these are the distractions and interruptions that pull us out of that state of deep focus.
So putting away the phone, closing the email tab, finding a quiet space where we can work without distraction.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that supports that deep concentration.
Okay. What's the second step in this flow state formula?
Activate. Use flow triggers to enter the zone.
Flow triggers, what are those?
They're specific actions or rituals that help signal to your brain that it's time to enter that flow state.
So it's like creating a mental cue that helps us transition into that focused state.
Exactly. The book suggests experimenting to find what works best for you. It could be something as simple as listening to a particular playlist, lighting a candle, or taking a few deep breaths before diving into your work.
Love that. It's about creating a personalized routine that helps us shift gears mentally.
Right.
And get into that flow zone. What's the final step in this formula?
Sustain. Stay in flow for longer periods.
Okay, that's the part I always struggle with. It's like I'll get into that groove and then something inevitably pulls me out of it. An email notification, a phone call, or even just a random thought that pops into my head. How do we maintain that flow state and prevent those interruptions from, like, derailing our focus?
The book emphasizes the importance of protecting that flow state once you're in it. This might involve setting boundaries with others, silencing notifications, and practicing mindfulness to gently redirect your attention back to the task at hand. When those distractions inevitably arise.
It's like creating this mental bubble around ourselves, this space where we can work without interruption.
Exactly. And it also suggests gradually transitioning out of flow state when the session ends. Rather than abruptly stopping.
Right.
This helps us re-enter the state more easily next time.
It's like giving our minds a chance to decompress and integrate the experience, rather than just like slamming on the brakes.
Precisely. And speaking of integration, the book also emphasizes the importance of reflecting on those flow state experiences. To learn from them and improve our ability to enter that zone more consistently.
So it's about paying attention to what works, what triggers that flow state for us, and what helps us sustain it.
Exactly. By consciously cultivating these flow state practices, we can transform the way we work, boosting our productivity, creativity, and overall sense of fulfillment.
That's so empowering. It's about taking control of our work experience and creating a state where we can truly thrive. And speaking of thriving, the book also delves into the topic of creating a life vision, you know, one that pulls us forward.
Yes. The book emphasizes the importance of having a clear vision for our lives. A sense of purpose that motivates us and guides our actions.
You know, this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and lose sight of the bigger picture. How does the book suggest we approach creating a life vision that truly inspires us?
The book provides this 3-step blueprint, and it starts with define. Define what you want.
Okay. So it's about getting clear on our values, our passions, our aspirations.
Exactly. It's about identifying what truly matters to us and creating a vision that aligns with our deepest desires. And the book encourages us to get specific, to paint a detailed picture of our ideal life rather than just setting these vague goals.
So it's about creating a vision that's so compelling it feels almost tangible, like we can already taste it, touch it, experience it in our minds.
Precisely. And the book suggests using visualization techniques to bring that vision to life.
I love visualization. It's such a powerful tool for manifesting our dreams.
Absolutely. And then once you've defined your vision, the next step is align.
Okay.
Ensure that your daily actions are actually matching your aspirations.
So it's about bridging the gap between our dreams and our reality.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that small, consistent actions are key to achieving those big goals. It's not about making those drastic overnight changes.
Right.
Instead, it's about taking small steps each day that move us closer to our desired destination.
It's about creating alignment between our intentions and our actions so that we're not just dreaming about our ideal life, we're actively building it brick by brick.
Precisely. And then the final step in this blueprint is activate. Use systems to keep that momentum alive.
So it's about putting structures in place that support our goals and help us stay on track even when, motivation fades.
Exactly. The book suggests using vision boards, setting reminders, and establishing accountability systems to help us stay focused on that vision.
Okay.
And keep moving forward even when those challenges arise.
That's so important. It's so easy to get discouraged or sidetracked when we're working toward big goals. Having those systems in place, it can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And the book emphasizes that creating a life vision isn't a one-time event.
Right.
It's this ongoing process of reflection, refinement, and action.
So regularly revisiting our vision, making adjustments as needed, and ensuring that it continues to inspire us.
Right.
And align with our evolving values and aspirations.
Exactly. And by actively engaging in this process of vision creation and alignment, we empower ourselves to design a life that truly lights us up, a life that feels meaningful, purposeful, and fulfilling.
That's such a beautiful concept. It's about taking ownership of our lives and creating a future that we're excited to wake up to every day.
Right. And speaking of taking ownership, the final chapter in the book really focuses on becoming the architects of our own lives.
Okay, becoming the architects of our own lives. That sounds powerful. What does that entail, and how do we make that shift from feeling like life is happening to us to feeling like we're in the driver's seat?
So the book argues that most people actually live their lives by default. They're following the scripts handed to them by society, by their families, or even their past experiences.
It's like we're on autopilot, just going through the motions without consciously choosing the direction of our lives.
Exactly. The book challenges us to wake up from that autopilot state and become the conscious creators of our own reality.
Okay, but how do we make that shift? It can feel so overwhelming to think about, redesigning our entire lives. Where do we even begin?
Well, the book provides a 3-step framework. And it starts with clearing the old blueprint. Those outdated beliefs, habits, and goals that are no longer serving us.
So it's about identifying and letting go of those things that are holding us back, whether it's limiting beliefs, unhealthy relationships, or unfulfilling careers.
Exactly. It's about creating space for something new to emerge.
And the book encourages us to question everything. Our beliefs, our habits, our routines, to ask ourselves, is this truly serving me, or am I just doing it because it's what I've always done?
Precisely. And once we've cleared that space, the next step is design. Design with intention.
Okay, so this is where we get to create that compelling vision, that roadmap that guides our choices and actions.
Exactly. The book encourages us to dream big, to envision a future that excites us, and to get specific about those details, where we want to live, how we want to spend our time, who we want to be surrounded by.
It's about painting a vivid picture of our ideal life, a picture that inspires us to take action.
Right. And then the final step in this framework is build. Build daily.
So it's about taking consistent action towards our vision one step at a time.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that big visions can feel overwhelming.
Right.
If we try to do everything at once. The key is to break down our goals into smaller, manageable steps and focus on making progress every single day.
It's about building momentum, one brick at a time, until we've created the life we've always dreamed of.
Precisely. And the book reminds us that we are the architects of our own lives. We have the power to choose the direction of our journey, to design a life that aligns with our values, and to create a future that fills us with joy and meaning.
That's such an empowering message. It reminds us that we're not passive passengers on this journey. We're the creators, the architects, the artists of our own lives. All this talk about creation makes me think about another challenge the book addresses: reprogramming our limiting beliefs.
Yes. The book emphasizes that our beliefs shape our reality. If we believe something is possible, we're much more likely to achieve it. But if we're carrying around these limiting beliefs about ourselves or our abilities, those beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies.
It's like those beliefs are creating invisible barriers,
right,
that prevent us from even attempting to reach our goal.
Exactly. And the book provides a 3-step framework for reprogramming those limiting beliefs. And it starts with identify those beliefs.
Okay, so becoming aware of those negative thoughts and recognizing them for what they are, just beliefs, not facts.
Precisely. And the book suggests asking ourselves, where did this belief come from? Is it really mine? Or is it something I've absorbed from my family, my culture, or society in general?
It's like doing an inventory of our beliefs and seeing which ones are truly serving us and which ones are holding us back.
Exactly. And once we've identified those limiting beliefs, the next step is challenge. Challenge those beliefs.
So putting those beliefs on trial, so to speak, examining the evidence for and against them.
Precisely. The book suggests asking ourselves, is this 100% true? Would I say this to a friend? What's a more empowering way to see this?
Ooh, those are great questions. They force us to step outside of our habitual thought patterns and consider alternative perspectives.
Right. And then the final step in this framework is replace. Replace those limiting beliefs with more empowering ones.
So actively choosing to believe in ourselves and our capabilities.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes the importance of repetition, repeating affirmations, visualizing ourselves, achieving our goals, surrounding ourselves with people who believe in us and support our growth.
It's like creating a new mental soundtrack for our lives, one that's filled with positive affirmations and empowering beliefs rather than those old tapes of self-doubt and negativity.
Precisely. And by consistently reinforcing those new beliefs, we gradually reprogram our minds for success. We create a reality that reflects our highest potential.
That's so inspiring. It's about taking control of our thoughts and beliefs and using them to shape a life that we truly love. Wow, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive. We've explored the benefits of solitude, practical strategies for incorporating it into our life, and how it can help us become more creative, resilient, and fulfilled. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to carve out some more alone time.
It's been a fascinating journey, and clearly this book has sparked a lot of insights for you.
It definitely has. I'm excited to put some of these ideas into practice and see how they can help me create a life that feels more aligned with my values and aspirations. Expert,